The Pipe Dreamer, Harriet Beecher Stowe and the Righteous Fools of the North, a fantasy of virtue that led to hypocrisy and destruction. 1. Introduction, a bestseller, born from delusion. Harriet Beecher Stowe, a name often praised as the conscience of America, who bravely fought against slavery. Her 1852 novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin, sparked massive public reaction in the North and is said to have even contributed to the outbreak of the Civil War. But let us ask a simple question. Were the slaves she depicted based on reality? The answer is no. What she created was a tragic fantasy of idealized, pitiable slaves, as imagined by a white woman, far removed from historical truth. 2. Stowe the Pipe Dreamer. Stowe had never lived in the South under slavery, nor had she ever owned slaves. Her understanding came from secondhand sources, newspapers, rumors, and a handful of former slave narratives. From these, she constructed a figure of the submissive, devout black slave in need of salvation, rooted not in lived reality, but in her own religious and moral worldview. She deliberately removed the anger, resistance, sexual violence, and destruction of family bonds that defined real slavery, creating instead a sanitized moral tale meant to comfort the white conscience. In this sense, she was the epitome of a pipe dreamer, a woman who saw what she wanted to see, not what was. 3. The Righteous Fools of the North. What's most astonishing is how northern middle-class whites embraced this fantasy with open arms. They wept over the story and cried out, "How tragic these poor people are!" But in truth, they were only moved by a form of suffering that had been neatly packaged for their emotional convenience. They had no sympathy for black rage or rebellion. They ignored real voices of resistance. They never questioned their economic dependence on Southern cotton. In short, they were drunk on Stowe's dream, not engaged with reality. Fueled by righteous emotion rather than hard truth, they launched a moral war, what became the most devastating internal conflict in American history, the Civil War. 4. When fantasy sets fire to reality. Stowe's work is not literature in the truest sense. It is a work of moral self-gratification for white readers, a unilateral piece of propaganda built upon her religious idealism. And those so-called righteous Northerners who were moved by it were no better. They were fools dancing to a fantasy, blind to the actual world. This pattern has repeated throughout history. What is said with the best of intentions, ideals, empathy, and justice often twists reality, silences others, and creates new divisions and violence. Conclusion. The most dangerous fantasy is the one worn as justice. Uncle Tom's Cabin was not a triumph of moral clarity. It was a warped mirror built from dreams in which Stowe saw herself as a savior, and the North eagerly played along. The world she imagined was ultimately paid for with real blood. And so we must still ask ourselves today, is this reality or merely a comforting dream disguised as justice?